It's always important that a Palestinian tells Palestinian stories. There's been many years of just kind of walking the line and kind of figuring it out because I knew that what I was experiencing as being a Palestinian, as being an Arab American and a Muslim on top of that was very, very difficult. What the show did was it accelerated that, the honesty, the transparency, the freedom to talk about whatever I felt. For some reason, it's like it's followed me around for my whole life, where you feel a sense of loss and there's a need to keep pushing forward and overcome it. And I think that speaks of the Palestinian experience, refugee experience as a whole.
You just performed for the first time in Morocco. How did it feel stepping on that stage, and did the crowd surprise you in any way?
It's just really, really pleasant to be here. I'm very, very happy. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. I've had a lot of messages online for years, actually, to come to Morocco, especially after season two and how significant of an impact it's had in the world. It's really, really important for me to go to as many places as possible. And Morocco has always been very high on that list. So, alhamdulillah, and I'm so happy to be here.
Speaking of your series, it blends real life and fiction in a way few comedians dare. What was the biggest creative risk you took through that show, and what did you discover about yourself while writing it and while doing it?
Well, that's a very good question, by the way. There was many surprises along the way with the show itself. Tapping into something that's so personal, like you said, like the line gets blurred at some point because you're playing a version of yourself, but some of those scenarios that I'm writing, they're really like right out of my life and they're so deeply personal and emotional. And that's probably what surprised me the most is being comfortable in that space. Because usually you do stand up, you do your thing and you get out of there, you're making people laugh. But to just, for instance, just like be super vulnerable like this on camera was something that I was really worried about, to be honest with you. But I did it. Yeah, I did it. I thought it was like one of the most beautiful things that I've accomplished in my life as far as the series is concerned. The last episode in particular, I felt like I accomplished a big purpose in my life for sure.
Hamoudi, the world will always try to tear us down. And when they do, we smile because we know who we are.
And taking those risks in Mo allowed you to explore personal truths, like we said. Was there something you could finally say on screen that you couldn't or wouldn't dare to say on stage?
That's also another good question. The thing is that the series has done is freed me up, right? There's been many years of just kind of walking the line and kind of figuring it out because I knew that what I was experiencing as being a Palestinian, as being an Arab American and a Muslim on top of that was very, very difficult. What the show did was it accelerated that, the honesty, the transparency, the freedom to talk about whatever I felt. Not only what I feel, but also what the world thinks and feels, right? And now over the last 2 years and what's happened in Gaza is just absolutely just heart shattering and just those images will never leave my mind, unfortunately. And I think about it every day. And what that's happened is like the world now is aware of that situation of Palestine, West Bank, Gaza, and so now they understand where I'm coming from. So now when they watch stuff that I've done 8 years ago, 10 years ago, they go, "Oh!" So that's been very helpful in that way to like shape my art and to talk about different things. And the show certainly has freed me up completely.
These truths feel especially significant given how Palestinian stories are often told by others. Do you feel that comedy is a way to reclaim the narrative? In other words, can comedy itself be a form of resistance?
I get really conflicted when I say comedy is a form of resistance because art is art and that's what's so beautiful about it. In Arabic it's fannan, you know what I mean? Like that's the more creative you are, the more thoughtful you are with your art is what makes you a fannan, you know what I mean? That's what makes you an artist. So that's the way I think about it because, it becomes like you're like some kind of activist and you're going to use it in this way. No, no, no. You use the art and the craft itself to tell a particular story, whether it be film or television or stand-up comedy, whatever form it takes, you can be very, very smart with it and how you put it together, how you package it together, how you tell the story, how you convey that message. And, and I usually lead with my heart most of the time. I lead with just the emotion, and the comedy always follows. Usually, like right after something tragic, you want to make yourself laugh right away. You know what I mean? So that's the way I like to think about it. That's the framing. Comedy itself, stand up in particular, it's one of the, there's only three indigenous art forms to America. It's stand up comedy, jazz, and hip hop, right? So jazz and hip hop have been spreading for quite some time. Certainly jazz has. And now comedy is this still very new and raw thing in a lot of different countries. So it's created a lot of opportunity to create conversations. And that's what I love about that art form. It's always important that a Palestinian tells Palestinian stories. Like I've had situations where people tell me like, oh, this doesn't feel like our show. I'm like, no, it's not your show. It's also not my show. It's for the people. And what makes it my show is that it's coming from my own experience and my own stories. And what it does is it transcends, cultures. It's not just Palestinian. Mexicans love it, Latinos of all walks of life, Chinese people, you name it. People feel some kind of attachment to the way I tell stories. So that is a huge win.
So that sense of responsibility must come with a careful balance in some way. Did you feel a duty to make Mo not just funny, but deeply human with the characters and their stories, especially when Palestinians are so often dehumanized and flattened in Western media, for example?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, like I've always wanted to make a real grounded show. Meaning, like when you saw these characters, you saw a version of yourself, or a version of your mother, or a version of your brother, or for your friends in that circle. That's what I really wanted to do, and I was very aggressive in trying to pursue that. And anything that didn't feel good to me, like if it didn't feel good in my gut, in my heart, in my mind, like I would play with it, explore it to see if there's something missing. But usually, it would, it wouldn't feel right. It's probably not. You take it out right away. But that's always been like my touchstone. That's where I always went back to. Does it feel good to me? Does this sound authentic? Does it make me nervous? If it makes you nervous, it's probably a good thing. It's one of those things like, oh, people shy away from that. Like the more anxious you are, the more nervous you are, you're probably leading in a very good direction. So you should follow that and double down on it actually. So no, I think that it's again, like I'm very, very proud of what I've done with it.
You talked about your show feeling personal. Your comedy also often tackles personal issues, experiences like displacement, borders, stereotypes. How do you find humor in moments marked by fear, by humiliation or loss without diminishing its weight?
I think it's a natural human reaction to go from something so tragic that you experience to comedy. You know, for some reason, it's like it's followed me around for my whole life, where you feel a sense of loss and there's a need to keep pushing forward and overcome it. And I think that speaks of the Palestinian experience, refugee experience as a whole, not just it being a Palestinian thing. Clearly, like Palestinians make up, I think, one of the biggest refugee populations on earth. So, uh, you know, it just comes in hand. And I've visited, many years ago, I visited refugee camps, and I would tell you this: they're some of the funniest people on earth, way funnier than anybody I know. I'm dead serious. And those experiences, that hardship, that angst, that pressure creates something like diamonds. It really does. And whether it's like within comedy, storytelling, poetry, it's really a beautiful thing that creates. So as hard as it is when I'm feeling the loss or tragedy, there's inspiration to come shortly after. And that's the beauty of it, and that's the absolute beauty of it. That was pretty good. I need to remember that.
So your personal story gives those themes even more resonance. You once said, "I'm a product of statelessness and generational displacement." Only yesterday, you posted a story and you performed in Beirut, very close to your family, but you couldn't see them.
You're stalking me. I'm concerned.
Had to. That's my
That's
job.
all right, cool.
How do these realities shape your perspective on today's new waves of Palestinian displacement?
Oh, It's another really good question. So it was really bittersweet to be in Beirut, because you're so close to home. You're so close to my family and my aunts and my cousins, but yet so far. So clearly the landscape is very familiar. The food is very familiar. The people feel familiar to a certain degree. And you have a sense of like, I've been robbed of something, experientially. Some of it is tangible, where it's actual physical land, but it's really more the experiences that I feel like I've just been taken away from me. Like I even saw them yesterday, like at the restaurant. It was so sweet. They just were so like, Arabs, man. It's just like they're so proud of me, and I feel so gracious to be around them. And all of a sudden, they're serving all this food, and then they start doing depka, right? And it's just the most beautiful dance. Everybody's coming together, and I danced too, and I jumped in there with them, and we started doing it. And then they started going away from me because I got tired. So they started going away and around the restaurant. I was clapping, and I just started thinking about my father, Allah yarhamah. I started thinking about all those before me. I started thinking about like, oh man, this was taken away. I could have had this every weekend. I could have been experienced this. My son could have this experience, and now that's what I mean by generational displacement. And what does that create over time? What is the hole in the hearts that creates over time? As well as, if, like I said this in my show, that DNA carries traumatic memories. So apparently that's true, scientifically proven. If that's the case, then what is going on inside of us for all our lives? And how do you mend those things? Now, what stand-up has done for me is that it's taken me around the world, and it's allowed me to reconcile a lot of those holes that I've had in my heart, whether it's doing shows in Kuwait, doing shows in Iraq. That's where I fled to begin with, and to experience that and to go back there and tie those knots were extremely important. To go to the West Bank and do stand-up, to go to Jerusalem and do stand-up, to see my family, to visit my grandparents' house. That's what all inspired Mo season 2 specifically. The whole series, of course, but definitely that second season.
And yet, despite everything, your work overflows with warmth. We just saw the laughter in the room earlier. Faith and laughter. What keeps you hopeful as a comedian and then as a Palestinian when the word feels so unbearably heavy?
Well, I think that the absence of hope is a really dark existence. So it's extremely important to never lose hope. And hope is the essence of believing in a divine existence and understanding that this is a temporary existence that we live in. We're here, like I said in my set, we're here for a limited time only, and time is of the essence. I can go on, but unfortunately, I'm almost out of time. Like that's how it feels. So you need to have a hope that pushes you forward. The hope is the wind in your back, is what is really creates that glide, that rhythm that allows you to push forward and believe. If you lose that, the light gets dim and it's very dark. So it's really, really important. And doesn't mean that you're always that way. You're human, and you need to have those moments of fragility and feel like I have lost hope. But what that creates, once you get over that hump, is somebody much stronger, somebody who understands more. Their belief is stronger. It's not just logical, it's spiritual. And that's, to me, like what it's all about. It's like there's this quote, like I don't know who said this, but somebody who went through a really horrible experience and transformed their life. They said, religious people are afraid to go to hell. Spiritual people have been to hell and they don't want to go back. That's how I feel. I feel like I've seen those experiences, and it's nowhere near what everybody else that I've seen had. So it's always could be worse, and it always could be better. Just be happy with what you have and keep the hope alive and keep pushing forward.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much. And this is poetry class with Mo Amer. I don't know where that came from, to be honest.
Thank you for being so sweet and kind.